Participants asked me, where is Danube University? Where is Danube University? It's a new university near Vienna in the world's UNESCO heritage Wachau, where the Department for Image Science, which I chair, is housed in a new university, a brand new university, and also in an old 900-year-old monastery where we work together with monks, where we digitize a huge collection, and it's also the base for the largest database existing worldwide at this point. We have also international programs there. And since the 30,000-year-old Venus of Willendorf, the sculpture, was found there, we may even say that images always played a role at this region. So today, most of us feel that we are in the center of an image revolution. Never before has the world of images around us changed so fast. Images are advancing into new domains. Private platforms like YouTube, Flickr with its 5 billion uploads, Facebook that has received its 400 million member, television became a zappy field of thousands of channels, now in 3D, and as we know, 3D experiences a renaissance in cinema as well. Huge projection screens are invading our cities, cell phones transmit micromovies in real time, and building surfaces melt ever more with moving images. So that the old dream of talking architecture gets a new push and a whole new arsenal of options. Google Street View and Google Earth step up the concepts of panoramic images, panoramic image spaces in an unknown way, including the satellite view, for example, of our Center for Image Science in Göttwig. The image's historical development between innovation, reflection, and iconoclasm reaches in the 21st century a new level of global complexity. These transformations have fit society to a large extent unprepared. Digital images became ubiquitous and key tools within the global reorganization of work. Digital images help to understand the most complex mathematical formulas, and we have to recognize that we will not be able to handle the knowledge societies of our time without further development of new forms of visualizations and orders of visibility. So we are witnessing the rise of the image into a virtual spatial image. These are images which appear capable of changing interactively, even autonomously, and of formulating a lifelike, all-embracing audiovisual and sensory sphere where temporal and spatial parameters can be altered at will. Within this rapid development, media art has evolved over the last 30 years into a vivid contemporary force. Digital art became the art of our time, but arrived slowly into the core cultural institutions of our societies. Although it is the art, I would say the art of our time, and the art with the widest need today. It is media art with its multi-various potential of expression and visualization which thematizes complex challenges of our societies like globalization, knowledge explosion, genetic engineering, ecological crisis, and so forth, our modern life. But although there are well-attended festivals worldwide, well-funded collaborative projects, discussion forums, and emerging database documentation projects, media art is still rarely collected by museums, not supported within the main frame of art history, and nearly inaccessible in non-technological driven societies. Even if today media artworks are quantitatively dominating the art schools, media art was almost ignored by museums. The acquisition and maintenance can still not compete with traditional art media. Thus, we witness the erasure of a significant portion of the cultural memory of our recent history. And it is no exaggeration to state that we face the total loss of art from the earliest times of our post-industrial digital societies. Therefore, media art needs as many bridges as possible provided by image science and the digital humanities. Conferences, like this one, new scientific tools, like databases and text repositories, new preservation strategies, new curricula for the next generation of teachers and collectors, and new strategies for visual analysis of complex data. A bridge for media art in education means the establishment of new curricula, as we developed the first international master in media art histories, with faculty members from across the globe. It gives an overview of the most important developments of media art in the last decades and teaches the latest expertise in curation, collecting, preserving, and archiving of media arts. And this is what it's all about. Hundreds of names. You see that you don't see a lot here, but if I zoom in a little bit, you get an idea what it is. Hundreds of names of artists, of artworks, art trends, theory of media art, and keywords presented in an enormous, huge circle. 32 slices are offered as a subdivision to themes like representation, emotion, and synesthesia, atmosphere, games, art as spatial experience. We find glimpses of a history of media art, like other festivals which look into their own past. The Ars Electronica, with 100,000 visitors each year, the largest festival, has started to look into its history, and I think this diagram shows quite impressively the tremendous development media art has undergone over recent years. So we know that media artists are today shaping highly disparate areas like time-based installation art, telepresence, and genetic and bioart, robotics, net art and space art, experimenting with nanotechnology, artificial or A-life art, creating virtual agents and avatars, mixed realities, and database-supported art. These artworks both represent and reflect the revolutionary development that the image has undergone over recent years. But the evolution of images, of media art, has a long history, and now a new technological variety has appeared. However, this art cannot be fully understood without its history, which is why I agree with the plea the famous Rudolf Arnheim published as a 98-year-old for integrating the new interactive and processual worlds of images into the experiences and insights that have come down to us from the art of the past. His words sound like a plea for an interdisciplinary image science, and that's exactly what he proposed. Image science can play an important role to understand today's image worlds in their society leading and forming function, and it might be considered as the political battleground where the clash of images is analyzed. Not at least the development of new media may be illuminated, since the first utopian expressions often, as we know, take place in artworks, and to better understand our present and our goals in a period where the pace appears to get faster and faster. That's why Media Art Histories held its first international conference, which I chaired in 2005 at Banff, representing the wide array of 19 disciplines involved in the emerging field of media art histories. And the good news is, through the success of the following conferences in Berlin and Melbourne, an established conference series has been founded, and Liverpool 2011 is on its way. So some of the results were published by MIT Press. We know that a central problem of current cultural policy stems from a serious lack of knowledge about the origins of audiovisual media, and this stands in complete contradiction to current demands for more media and image competence. Therefore, I will give an example on only one phenomena of media art, which might demonstrate that we need to know more about the sub-histories of media art. There are other paradigms like artificial life, telepresence, and the phantasmagoria, but I will focus now on the idea of making us present via illusion and immersion. Although many people view the concept of presence, virtual or mixed realities as a totally new phenomenon, it has its foundation in an unrecognized history of immersive images. So in addition to the artists mentioned before, one could cite works by Geoffrey Shaw, Luc Cochin, Maurice Benayoun, or Michael Neymark. Whether consciously or unconsciously, these artists all refer back to a historic ancestor in the history of art and media, the 1787 patented panorama. forerunner of cinema, today forgotten, but it was actually the mass medium of the 19th century with millions of visitors. Panorama, 3D and virtual space are part of the history of immersion, a recently recognized phenomenon that can be traced through almost the entire history of art and media, as I have documented in a recent book. History has shown that there is permanent cross-fertilization between large-scale spaces of illusion that fully integrate the human body, so 360-degree frescoes, the panorama, stereopticon, cineorama, IMAX cinemas, the cave, or let me highlight here the media panorama of the latest World Fair in Shanghai by Triad, and small-scale images positioned immediately in front of the eyes, like peep shows of the 17th century, stereoscope, stereoscopic television, sensorama, or head-mounted displays. And at the latest examples of this development are computer games like Grand Theft Auto, which mix the emotional involvement with immersive graphics. So all of these approaches of comparison are based on the insight that images act diachronic within a historical evolution and never function simply without reference. Let's remind ourselves that scientific work with images, image science, is based on three preconditions: definition of the object, setup of an image archive, and three, familiarity with a large quantity of images. Without this historic base, image science remains superfluous and cannot realize its full potential. If those preconditions are fulfilled, image science may be practiced within many fields: medicine, biology, or history of collections. Image science now allows to write the history of the evolution of the visual media, from peep show to panorama, stereoscope, magic lantern, phantasmagoria, film with odors and colors, IMAX, to the virtual image spaces of computers. It is an evolution with breaks and detours. However, all its stages are distinguished by a relationship between art, science, and technology. Inspired by Darwin's work, The Expression of Emotions, Hume A.B. Warburg, the most prominent cultural historian of the 20th century, an inspirational figure comparable with Freud or Einstein, began a project of an art historical psychology of human expression. With his famous Mnemosyne Atlas of 1929, he redefined art history as media bridge building and argued that art history could fulfill its responsibility only by including most forms of images. We could also mention André Malraux with his Musée Imaginaire, and now we are witnessing the birth of the Virtual Museum, a key project for the digital humanities. But let's look for a second beyond the humanities. In the natural sciences, large collective projects have addressed new research goals. For example, the Virtual Observatory enables hundreds of networked astronomical institutes to access the pooled resources of images and data materials, sparing the bulk of tedious work and maximizing the efficiency and concentration of astronomers. And as you know, the fast success of the Human Genome Project, enabled by its collective organization, so the collective organization already became legend. So far unknown collective structures allow answers to new and complex questions. So why not enable the humanities as well to address and solve new complex questions important to for our knowledge economy? Why not organize an adequate large-scale approach and give the next generation of artists, researchers, curators, media producers in our society what they need? Comparable with natural sciences, digital media and new opportunities of network research catapult the humanities within reach of new and essential research, from documentation and preservation of media art to an entire history of visual media and their human reception by means of thousands of sources. These themes express in regard to image revolution current key questions. Example for a virtual museum is the first documentation of media art. The database of virtual art, which started 10 years ago, is probably the most complex resource available online. Hundreds of leading artists are represented with several thousand documents. Let me clarify that the DVA represents the scientific selection of 500 artists, of approximately 5,000 evaluated artists. High importance we ascribe to artistic innovations like innovative interfaces, displays or software. So here you have a selection of represented interfaces and here of some divergent displays, which could give future students a systematic overview of the enormous variety developed during the last decades by artists. So in addition to thematic searches, future media art documentation should allow questions of gender, tracking technical stuff from lab to lab, artistic technical innovations, etc. In this way, documentation changes from a one-way archiving to a proactive process of knowledge transfer. Yet, the tools only hold the data. The quality of the analysis continues to rely on thoughtful developments in the digital humanities, on projects like the ambitious research on culture analysis Lev Manovich is doing at San Diego, and Jeffrey Shaw's ongoing work with iCinema, for example, an advanced scientific and also entertaining instrument. But bridging the gap of media art documentation means now also the integration into historic treasures of art. So together with probably one of the most important unpublished art collections, the Göttweig print collection with 30,000 prints of Renaissance and Baroque works and a library of 150,000 volumes going back to the 9th century, like the St. Gallen Codex, the database of virtual art strives to achieve the goal of a deeper media art historical cross-pollination. So the combination of these two and other databases hopes to enable further historic references and impulses. So for the first time, Media Art and Classic Art database will amalgamate through a new keyword system. From here, networking with other databases, especially outside Europe and the US, is of great importance. We hope for intense cooperation with Asia and especially Korea. Since the foundation of the database of virtual art, a number of online archives for documentation arose, but all these projects have terminated in their funding and their funding expired. The DVA is one of the only left standing. These evolving archives, our scientific tools, more and more provide the only remaining image source of the works to be explored. But the standstill and disease of these archives makes them losing their significance for research while contemporary digital art continues. So ironically, not only media art but also its documentation vanishes, and future generations have no access to the works of the past if we don't do anything. So if we take a look at research on media art over the last 15 years, then it is clear what we need is a concentration of high-quality scholarly documentation as well as a huge expansion of strengths and initiative. In the field of documentation, scientific preservation so far does not exist. It is essential to unite the most important lessons learned and strategies developed under the single roof of an international institution that can guarantee persistent existence. A location such as the Library of Congress, for example, or a large institution in Asia, for example, in Seoul. And more, the funding structures themselves must be internationalized in ways similar to those enabling modern astronomy, genomics, and climatology to create enough momentum and the necessary sustainability. Responsible national foundations have to ensure international long-term sustainable structures. The virtual observatory infrastructure, and I want to put this in the end of my talk, is founded on an ongoing basis, and there is international coordination between a dozen or so countries that produce astronomical data. Only when we develop systematic and concentrated strategies of collecting, preservation and research will be able to fulfill the task which the digital culture demand from image science and the humanities in the 21st century. What is urgently needed is the establishment of an appropriate structure to preserve at least the usual 3 to 6% of present media art production, the best works. The faster this essential modification to our cultural heritage record can be carried out, the smaller the gap in the cultural memory, shedding light on the dark years which started about 1960 and last till now. So maybe in the near future we can create collective tools as represented in Christa Sommerer's work, The Living Web, which generates a spatial information sphere from search engines in a cave. The work is a prototype for visual analysis with the option of comparing up to 1,000 images. Students, teachers, fellow international audience, let's build captivating new tools which provide access to the breadth of digital culture production. Coupled with the depth of historical optical media, they will enable us with new unpredictable understandings of today's image revolution. When our digital societies can better understand what we create, why we create ever new elusive technologies, this will lift us up into a new paradigm of understanding and media competency with the example of its passage through media by art. Thank you very much.